Good morning, everybody. It's Brigid here from the Documentary Association of Europe again, doing another discussion for CineDB Insights, which is an offspring of the CineDB.Africa conversation series, a series of in-depth encounters with film professionals from the continent that was developed by a group of African curators as part of the CineDB.Africa project of the Goethe Institute, which is now accessible on the e-portal of the Durban FilmMart Institute, the new home of CineDB.Africa. I'm super happy to welcome a really special guest with us today from one of Europe's preeminent training programs for documentary producers. And so I'm super pleased to welcome Nora Philippe with us today. Nora, welcome.
Hello, Brigid. Hello, thank you for the invitation.
No, thank you for joining us. So can you, before we get started talking about Eurodoc, would you be so kind and tell us about your professional background, what you've been doing, how you got started in the film industry, and maybe what's brought you to Eurodoc?
Yes, so Eurodoc was born in 1999, and I was only appointed last March in 2022. So my position as a director is quite new. As a director of Eurodoc, but as a film director, I have a longer story since I started making films as a director and as a producer 12 years ago. And I've mainly made documentaries on artists, on cultural issues, and being based in Paris and also being based in New York. And my last film was actually on the restitution of African heritage to Africa from Western institutions. So I've been working on this decolonial stake and long story since 2018, actually. So I've also been an independent producer, working with various European countries as a co-producer as well, always in the realm of creative documentary. And I've also been a curator. I've worked for 5 years with Columbia University in New York and in Paris, programming films on, again, let's say social issues, on migration, on Blackness in French and Francophone cinema. But that's my background, and that I'm trying to offer to what I do as the director of Eurodoc, but also as a mentor with our Eurodoc participants.
So what inspired you to come to Eurodoc?
Well, I've been teaching since 10 years, but it was the priority was given to art school students or just students. So what's really interesting when you're training professionals, also grown-ups and people who are already in the industry, is that, well, you get a chance to, again, humbly but shape the industry, at least at your level. So that's really important. I've been often very frustrated, let's say, with the industry, as a woman, as a young person. In Europe, it's very difficult when you're young to be trusted, to have access to resources and contracts, etc. And again, the industry, at least in Europe, where I'm based, is still really, sometimes a bit backward in terms of, diversity, parity, anti-sexism and anti-racism, as you very well know. So I feel that I have some power in the position I have. At least I use this position and this privilege to make things move. So training is beautiful. I mean, you have a possibility over quite a long time. I mean, our program lasts several months, and then we do some follow-up. We keep in touch with our graduates. So training people is a really interesting way to shape production ethics, co-production ethics, and also simply build robust networks of of cooperation and solidarity. So that's actually what we do at Eurodoc.
Maybe to bring it back down to a more practical level, would you tell us how Eurodoc functions? What happens over the year if you're a producer who's selected for Eurodoc?
Yes, so we have several types of workshops and sessions, but our main yearly program is, well, I could say that it starts in July with the call that opens. So our call for applications is open from July to November, just after ITFA. And then you get your notification for if you're selected or not by the end of the year, and the program concretely starts in March, so and ends in October. But then we have again follow-up sessions and other events. But so the concrete training program starts in early March with the first session in one European country. Then there's a second session in June in a second European country, and then the third and final session that takes place in October in another country or another region. Of course, there are online sessions and follow-up and consultations, etc., between all on-site sessions. Each session lasts 1 week from Sunday night to Friday night. There's a party on Friday night, and then there are all the festivals we are partners with that are also opportunities to meet again between each session. And what the method right from the start, there are trucks outside, so this is the Parisian city sound cityscape.
Okay.
So what we do is really based on tutoring, mentoring. So we have tutors who supervise groups, and the whole work is what's important to say is that the selection and then the work within the sessions, everything is project based. So we select participants over their project, which must be a creative documentary project. Mostly feature-length films, and that is in development. So that's very important. So again, we're very flexible with the definition of development, because having a film in development in China, Ghana, or Denmark can be, it's different. There are different definitions, also different definitions also regarding the project itself. But it's the main concept is development, and the training focuses on development, production, and co-production. But also, we have openings on distribution, of course, and meeting with so I can go into more details afterwards, but with broadcasters. So it's the whole storyline, if I may say, or the whole chain and process of making a film. But we actually, I mean, the writing stage would be too early, so it really needs to be in development. And we do, again, I say it and repeat it, we train producers. So we often have directors who are also producers who are also directors, but the priority is training producers. And when it comes to what Europe calls the global South, I believe that we have more and more very, very talented, very African filmmakers, directors. But it seems that the feedback that I get from directors who are based, especially in West Africa, because it's a region I know a bit more, are calling for more producers based there, so that they don't have to rely or to depend on co-production with production or co-production with Western producers. And that's a horizon we should really look at, having, I mean, and I can participate to that dynamic and movement, but again, I'm based in Europe, and so the dream is that actually, African filmmakers and producers just wouldn't need Western, funds and Western validation, and just that, production means are in Africa, and it's fine.
I think it's really interesting what you say. I think the first thing also to point out to our audience is Eurodoc is also unusual because you're bilingual. So you can participate in the main Eurodoc group in both French or English, which is a really special thing, because if you're going to go to IAVE, and I think also ACE carries out their training predominantly in English, which is also like the colonial language of co-production, let's say. So for our viewers, maybe if French is your first language, then maybe coming to Eurodoc could be a great place. But then on the other hand, you're totally right. And interestingly enough, also through the curation of these talks, when I was looking for funding support for African filmmaking talent, it was much easier to find institutions in North America than it was on the continent of Europe, with the exception of the Wickers, but they're in the UK, which is no longer Europe, that predominantly supports African talent for who they are. Whereas when you are coming into a co-production, of course, your ally and the person who defends and represents your project is your European counterpart.
Yes. So yes, thank you for pointing this out. So our policy is that we are wonderfully funded by the European Commission since actually a very long time. So we are proudly a European creature. Our policy is that we can take 70 inside this program, because we have other programs now, so it's opening up. But our media-funded main program is open to 70% of European professionals, and 30% can be from, you know, the rest of the world. What's interesting is that also that we can, within this, you know, 70% of professionals based in Europe, I mean, with the actually European citizenship, it's not only based, we can still work definitely with, you know, diasporic identities. So that's, we are, you know, that's what we are trying to do, of course. But also those producers can also, you know, produce films by people who are outside Europe. So this makes a very, very diverse cohort, definitely.
Yeah.
And we are working on having even, you know, as diverse as possible. But also I'd like to mention that indeed, and thank you for pointing this out, because it could, you know, this French speaking group that we have and that we still have is definitely not, I mean, it's, of course we have French and Belgian and Swiss people, but it's also keeping this language inside our groups is a very, it's still a very good way to have professionals coming from the whole continent, from the North Africa, from West Africa. So this is what happens. We also had a workshop in Morocco in December. We had a workshop in the Caribbean. It was actually very, you know, trilingual. It was Spanish, French, and English, and it still works well. So I hope that we'll have more projects also coming from the east of Africa. And we also have a very long story of partnerships with the MENA countries, with the you know, Arab-speaking world. We've trained many professionals from Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, you know, within the 23 years of history of Eurodoc. So we are well identified there, and we've made many co-productions possible between, you know, the Arab world and Europe. So I think we can be proud of that.
So nothing in life is free. Eurodoc obviously has fees, and it not only does it come with a participation fee, but also filmmakers or producers need to take time out of their lives, and time is also money. Traveling and accommodation and subsistence costs also cost money. So I think it's good also to be mindful and targeted about when maybe is the right time for you to participate in Eurodoc. So for an African talent or aspiring or up-and-coming producer from the continent of Africa, when do you think is a good time for them to be applying in their career?
So that's a very good pragmatic question as well. So this is a valid question for anyone applying to Eurodoc, because it does take time. It can be costly to travel, to, you know, to pay for the hotel and pay tuition fees. So that's true. So I would dream that, you know, scholarships were granted to everyone, and that it was almost a, you know, a free program. Our economy does not make this possible, but we do have scholarships available for people who need them in low capacity countries in Europe, and more for people, you know, coming from outside of Europe. I wish we had more. I very much wish we had more scholarships. So I'm working on that. We're working on that, and we're trying to have more partners. and more sponsors, so that professionals coming from outside of Europe had access to scholarships, but also to like big scholarships, because indeed when you're traveling from Yaoundé, or from Bombay, of course Mumbai, of course it's more costly. It can be a very lengthy and costly and humiliating process to have access to visas that afford you, that enable you to have access to Europe. So this is another thing. But again, I wish that, when we'll have more African filmmakers in our cohort, I wish that we have also more African experts and advisors and tutors. It's not only in the position of, participants, it's also as, role models that are not only European. And then I wish that, in my professional lifetime, we are discussing in the streets with the age of retirement in France. It's for my generation, it's only 67. So I really very much hope that before I turn 67, European participants will feel that they really need to go to Nigeria or to Kenya to learn their trade, and to find funds, and to hopefully find co-producers willing to work.
I don't know, maybe by then enough stories will have been told by European directors, so like they can just have a break.
No. Yeah, no, of course I agree, but I very I wish that there will be
no, obviously I'm being a little facetious, because I mean story sovereignty is a discussion for a whole other interview. But I think that's really, really interesting. I really admire the work that other organizations such as IFTA are doing to provide those super vital travel grants to get people mobile and able to also participate in this so-called global documentary community. But just to come back to our interview questions, would you like to tell us maybe one or two titles of films that have either been through Eurodoc or you've worked on yourself, that you're really proud of, so that also our audience can get an idea of the kind of films you like?
So yeah, we every year we publish a beautiful little booklet of the films that went to Eurodoc in the last years and that have premiered last year. So we published it in January. So this is about all the films that were completed last year and or pitched actually as projects. And well, I could talk about a film that has been much talked about in the last days and weeks, because it's Against the Tide, that was Sundance, which is an Indian film, directed by Savnik Kaur. And so the producer attended Eurodoc 2 years ago. It was Eurodoc 20. And it's a wonderful film that won an award at Sundance. So, and again, it's not you. I mean, it's a co-production between India and France. We're very proud of, and also I could talk about Blue Island.
I love
so
Blue
it's
Island.
a very interesting co-production, Hong Kong, Japan, and Taiwan. That was finished last year. That went actually to Hot Docs. It won an award. It was the best feature documentary award. So produced by Catherine Chan. So I think same year. She was at Eurodoc the same year as Against the Tide. And of course, we could also mention How to Save a Dead Friend by Marusha Siroshkovskaya. That went to ACID. That was an incredible international co-production. So it was Eurodoc 19. It went to, and it was actually a one case study that we offered last session. So we tried to, we really work with, our method is based on case studies. And so we do invite, Eurodoc graduates to present their film as co-production case studies. So that are, it's just a few instances of what we do.
Perfect. Okay, so we're going to wrap this up. This has now become a very long conversation, but it's always so interesting talking to you. I'm so happy about it. Would you tell us, again, I find it very silly. I keep saying this, but I find it very silly that I put this into the interview, because surely we should be asking African talent how we can support them rather than hypothesizing from our offices in Berlin and Paris what we could be doing. But what do you think we could be doing to support African filmmaking talent more?
Well, as within the frame of Eurodoc, the main stake or difficulty for us is to find scholarships that fund the mobility.
Yeah.
So that's about it. So we need dedicated programs to make mobility easier and fully funded. That's one thing. Another thing is, I would also say that I wish the way that documentary projects dossier are examined by commissions and committees would take into account that, you know, the European standards of writing are not, are not universal.
Yeah.
And that I wish that, you know, the more and more, you know, African professionals and projects we have in our cohorts will change the paradigm, you know, and will change standards of how you write a documentary project, how you shoot a documentary project, how you produce it. And that, you know, that progressively our production methods, writing method, do change, evolve. And because as far as I know, from now they are, you know, European standards are not universal standards, and I wish that it's going to change swiftly, and I'm confident it will, because we have so many people working on that now.
I think so too. I also feel the same. Some days I'm defeated by these old-fashioned European ideas about, you know, what high art is or what good television is. But then I go and I meet my queer feminist friends, and I think, like, actually, it's not true. Like, a critical mass is forming, and things are changing. And also, the great thing about documentary is, in some senses, we're such an unprofessional bunch that if we really want to do something, we'll just get it done. So I think this is also a really exciting time to be making documentaries, despite the many challenges and hurdles lots of us face across the globe. And I would also add, I would love to end like this visa business if there was a way to like streamline or just like, I don't know, end the nation state. That's where I would start. Abolition. But thank you so much for this really great discussion today. I am wishing you a very nice day. I hope that winter will be over soon. And I wish you all the best of luck for the upcoming workshops in year and for a great Eurodoc 2023 cohort.
Thank you, Brigid. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. And I hope we'll continue. And I'm looking forward to the other, you know, interviews and to discovering the other interviews that were filmed. Thank you so much.
Super. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.